This is the Galaxy Z Fold4, Samsung's new premium foldable flagship. This is the most expensive Samsung phone you can get right now. So what does the Z Fold4 bring compared to last year, and is the innovation worth the price tag? I'm Will for GSM Arena, and let's find out in our full review. Last year, Samsung seemed to hit the nail on the head with its foldable phones, and they were pretty successful. So understandably, the new Z Fold4 sticks to the tried and true formula. You've got the foldable inner screen protected within a clamshell form factor, and an outer screen that you can use while the device is folded. What is new this time around are some refinements with the design, an upgraded chipset, and some new cameras. Design-wise, the Fold4 is similar to before, but a little bit smaller and lighter. You still get the IPX8 protection against water here, which is really nice. There's a soft matte finish and glossy frame, and the back panels are made of sturdier Gorilla Glass Victus Plus. The armor aluminum hinge has seen a bit of a redesign and is slimmed down a bit. It still functions the same way though. It's quite supportive and can hold the phone open to almost any angle. While folded, you can use the Z Fold4's AMOLED cover screen, and you get a similar experience to a standard smartphone. It's still 6.2 inches, but has thinner bezels and a different aspect ratio from last year, at 23:9. This means that it's a bit shorter and not quite as narrow as the Z Fold 3's, and is more comfortable to use, though still on the tall side. When you open the Z Fold4, you reveal a 7.6-inch inner AMOLED screen with a 5:6 aspect ratio. It's like a small tablet. It has a pixel density of 401 ppi, and a fast 120Hz refresh rate too. There is still a crease where the screen folds over, and depending on the angle, it can be quite noticeable. At least the under-display selfie cam has been upgraded a bit, and is supposed to be a bit less visible than last year. The high refresh rate smooths out movements on the screen, and is very adaptive. It can dial down to a variety of different refresh rates depending on the activity. The lowest we saw it go down to was 24 Hz, but the UI frame rate will readily go down to 1 FPS for static content. The Z Fold4's display is sharp and contrasty, and the large size gives you a much different experience than your typical smartphone. Colors are very accurate, and you have options to tweak them in settings. And you get support for HDR10+ as well. The brightness of the screen is impressive too. We measured a maximum of 800 nits with the manual slider, with the extra brightness toggle on, and this can boost to over 1000 nits in auto mode when out in the sun. The Z Fold4 also has stylus support, but it requires a specific kind from Samsung with a tip that won't scratch the display. For audio, the Z Fold4 has a pair of stereo speakers, one bottom firing and one top firing. Loudness wasn't impressive, with a score of just average in our test, but the sound quality is very good, with nice vocals and treble and some bass. For biometrics, the Z Fold4 has a side-mounted fingerprint reader built into the power button. It's fast and reliable. And even though storage is not expandable here, you can get the Z Fold4 with plenty of it. There are options for 256 or 512 gigs, or even a whole terabyte. The interface of the Z Fold4 is One UI 4.1.1, based on Android 12. It's the same feature-packed UI you'd get on other Samsung flagships, except for a few specific features for the unique form factor. One handy feature is the taskbar, which floats on the bottom. It provides quick shortcuts to your dock icons and also recently used apps. Flex mode allows apps to take advantage of the two halves of the folding display. For example, in some apps you can use the bottom half as a touchpad to control the upper one. The Z Fold4 also offers advanced multitasking options to take advantage of the screen real estate. It's quite easy to open multiple apps side by side in a split screen. You can change the orientation of the split on the fly too. You can have up to 3 split screen apps and 5 apps in pop-up windows. That's 8 apps open at once. Besides that, it's a pretty standard Samsung UI. You can find out more about One UI 4.1 specific features in our dedicated video. A new flagship deserves a new chipset, and that's just what you get with the Z Fold4. It packs the latest Snapdragon 8 Plus Gen 1, which promises better efficiency and an upgrade in performance compared to last year's non-Plus version. As you'd expect, benchmark scores are excellent, with the Z Fold4 right up there near the top of the charts. It is notable that for GPU-intensive tasks, scores are higher when using the cover screen than if testing on the more demanding inner display. When it comes to thermals, the Z Fold 4 is no champion, and we did observe some thermal throttling. It's gradual though, and the amount is comparable to what you'll see on other current flagships. The Z Fold 4 has the same battery capacity as last year at 4400 mAh. Unfortunately, we couldn't run our full suite of battery life tests here because our review unit was carrier locked. Still, based on what we were able to measure, battery life has seen a small improvement compared to last year. The Z Flip 4 achieved 2 more hours of screen on time when web browsing, and about a half an hour extra during video playback. We'll make sure to update the video description with the full endurance rating once we get our hands on another review unit. Charging speed is better as well, even though the wired charging rate hasn't changed from 25 watts. With a proper Samsung adapter, we were able to charge the phone from 0 to 50% in half an hour, compared to 33% on last year's model. Also, wireless charging has been bumped up from 11 watts to 15, and you get reverse wireless charging too if you need it. The biggest upgrade you'll find on the Z Fold 4 though is the cameras. Samsung has replaced most of the outdated hardware of the Z Fold 3. The new setup includes a 50 megapixel main cam and a 10 megapixel 3x telephoto zoom, which are similar to what you'd get on the Galaxy S22. The 12 megapixel ultra wide though is the same as on the Z Fold 3. One other difference from the S22 setup is that the main cam has a different sensor, so you get dual pixel autofocus instead of the more advanced dual pixel Pro. During the day, the main cam captures pleasing images. There's enough detail, and the processing is pretty laid back and natural looking, without excessive sharpening. There is a lot of contrast though, and colors have plenty of pop. Portrait mode lets you shoot from the main or telephoto cam. Those from the main cam have a slight quality advantage, especially in darker scenes. Separation is excellent here. The zoomed portraits offer a different perspective, and you don't have to stand so close to the subject while shooting. Again, you get great subject separation. Regular zoomed in shots look very good too. Detail is crisp, sharpening remains conservative, and noise is minimal. The color rendition matches the main cams nicely, and dynamic range is excellent. The ultra-wide captures good photos. It's not the sharpest ultra-wide on a flagship phone, but it's not bad either, and resolves a lot of detail too. Color reproduction is also in line with the other two cameras. One complaint we do have is that shadows can end up a bit on the darker side. At night, the Z Fold 4 can apply automatic night mode processing in some scenarios, or you can toggle it through settings. The night mode isn't the most dramatic we've seen, but you get nicely brightened shadows and some better preserved highlights, though the noise reduction may smooth out some textures and details. With night mode off, there's still some HDR action going on, so dynamic range is still good, though scenes dominated by shadows can end up darker. Colors are nicely saturated, and the detail is good in better lit areas. With the telephoto cam, you'd have to toggle the night mode if you want it on. It provides nice results in the tonal extremes, revealing some detail in the shadows and minimizing halos around light sources. The colors look good, and there is some extra sharpening added. With night mode off, there will be a bit more noise, slightly harsher highlights and mushier shadows, so leaving the mode on seems like the better option. On the ultra-wide, we also prefer the night mode results. You get good dynamic range and additional sharpness, and the noise is removed. With no night mode to help out, the ultra-wide images come out rather dim, soft, and noisy. One interesting thing about the Z Fold 4 is that you have several options when it comes to taking selfies. There's your traditional 10 megapixel selfie cam located within the cover screen. Or you can use the 4 megapixel under display inner camera. The quality isn't so great here, it's more useful for video calls. Finally, you get the option to shoot with the rear cameras, using the cover screen as a viewfinder. This offers the best results, but is a bit trickier to finagle. The Z Fold 4 can record video with this main cam at up to 8K resolution at 24 FPS, but the more useful and less storage demanding resolution is good old 4K. This footage is good, with enough detail and plenty of sharpening and contrast. The contrast might even be a bit too much, as you can end up with some dark shadows. 4K video from the telephoto is quite nice. It's sharp and looks less processed than the footage from the main cam. There's plenty of contrast, and the colors match the main cams well. The ultra-wide also does a good job at matching the color reproduction, and the sharpness and detail are acceptable. The footage is again contrasty, and shadows are a bit dark. Electronic stabilization is available on all cameras in all resolutions. It's excellent, smoothing out pans and walking shake quite nicely. So that's the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 4. The price tag is on the hefty side, but it's also arguably the most cutting-edge foldable phone you can get right now. especially since the Xiaomi Mix Fold 2 is only seeing a limited release in China. So in that sense, the Fold 4 remains uncontested. It includes all of the features we liked in last year's model, and while it isn't too much of an overhaul, you do get nice new cameras and a more powerful chipset. The wider cover screen and faster charging are nice to have too. The Z Fold 4 may not be perfect, and being so expensive is definitely for a very specific audience. But if you're one of those people looking for the latest and greatest foldable phone, it is worth recommending. Thanks for watching guys, and see you on the next one.